Hi everyone, this is Allison Bickle and Johanna Good from RunSignup. We are going to present the lessons and takeaways from the 2019 RaceTrends Report, and we'll get started in about a minute because there's still a lot of people who are signing on right now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are really proud to announce the publication of our 2019 annual industry report. So to produce this report every year, we mine RunSignup's database, and we look at the aggregate statistics to give a good snapshot picture overview of where the endurance industry currently stands and the trends that have been happening over the last couple of years. So to pull this report together, we're looking at a pretty big data set. So this year, we're looking at more than 7 million participants across more than 52,000 race events. There's two notes about this. So number one, this data in the report is RunSignup's data. So we estimate that RunSignup represents about 20 to 30% of the endurance market. So this data is reflective of the events and races that are on our platform. The second thing to note, which is going to be relevant when Johanna is presenting some of our numbers and data, is that a lot of our analysis is around a cohort analysis. So we're looking at the cohort of races that used us both in 2018 and 2019 to find a lot of our statistics. So to start off this report, we added a new section this year, and it's the market overview. So we wanted to better contextualize the data that we present in this report with an overview of the general industry trends and important things that have happened over the past year to better explain the story behind our data. So the first part of the story is sales tax, and we've talked a lot about this in 2019 as we've rolled out RunSignup's sales tax system. So in 2018, the Supreme Court decision on South Dakota versus Wayfair cleared the way for states to charge taxes on interstate purchases. As of January 2020, 39 states have passed marketplace facilitator laws, and RunSignup estimates that it's going to remit about $3 million in sales tax in 2020. And as we look at the industry as a whole, we estimate that the industry's tax liability is estimated to be at around $10 million per year. So the takeaway from this is that the potential implications of sales tax noncompliance are pretty significant for registration companies, as well as their race and nonprofit customers. States are hungry for revenue, and they're going to go after whatever sources they can get it from. So they'll go after the Amazons and Wayfairs first, but there have already been actions against some smaller marketplaces like the lawsuit or the Chicago sued Eventbrite for back taxes, which resulted in Eventbrite having to pay nearly $800,000 to the city of Chicago to settle those tax liabilities. So we see that sales tax is already having a big impact in our industry, and it's going to be one of the big factors that continues this trend of market consolidation that we're seeing, which is the next part that we're going to talk about. So there are a lot of market moves in 2019. We have a flat to slightly increasing market, and increasing financial pressures on companies, both from sales tax and from outside investors, resulted in significant market consolidation through a number of different acquisitions and partnerships. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the sale of Hot Chocolate and Motive Ram Racing to New Media. So Rugged Races acquired the Hot Chocolate series, which continued a trend of Rugged expanding beyond the obstacle course racing business after Rugged's acquisition by New Media for $10 million in 2018. So Rugged now has 90 races and 450,000 participants per year. And beyond this acquisition of just the Hot Chocolate race series, Rugged also acquired Ram Racing's registration platform and Motive. Rugged is part of Gatehouse Live, which operates a number of other endurance and non-endurance events, and Gatehouse Live is owned by New Media. New Media is a newspaper company. They own about 150 newspapers and weekly newspapers that they distribute throughout the country. This year, New Media acquired Gannett, which is the owner of USA Today, as well as other daily newspapers and thousands of weekly newspapers. This was financed by nearly $2 billion of additional debt. The interesting thing is that Gannett is twice the size of New Media, and so Gatehouse Live's events make up a really small portion of this new conglomerate. So it's interesting to see because it could mean that, you know, Motive, Hot Chocolate, Ram Racing get well funded and keep their employees, or the company may choose to focus on other verticals since it is hard to generate profit from race processing fees and timing services. When we did this presentation at our symposium in January, we said that there's probably going to be more market consolidation that happens. And about 2 days after that presentation, Gannett, New Media, Gatehouse Live, Hot Chocolate, and Motive, Ram Racing also acquired I Am Athlete. So now I Am Athlete is part of that conglomerate as well. And it'll just be interesting to see how they decide to handle the multiple platforms and how they're going to migrate their customers to a single platform. In 2019, ASICS acquired RaceRoster. This was really great for RaceRoster because their investors got a really good return, and all the RaceRoster employees get to stay on and continue to work for ASICS. And ASICS is a company that has shown real commitment to this market, as demonstrated by their investment in Runkeeper and the creation of ASICS Digital. It's also an interesting way to look at the value that sponsors bring to races. In their 2019 financial summary, ASICS detailed that their strategic reason for acquiring RaceRoster was to expand their targeted market by focusing on a direct point of contact with women and young runners in the North America market. So there could be challenges with the acquisition because there's corporate overhead, there's new accounting systems, new development processes, but the acquisition could also have positive benefits for the industry. The next interesting move that happened is Races Online partnered with RaceRoster, and that's estimated to be about 200 to 300 registrations that moved over to RaceRoster as a result of that partnership. So the next one is Ryan Henry and Josh Drew left Stack Sports. So Ryan was the founder and CEO of RaceWire, and Josh was the leader at Get Me Registered. Both of those companies were acquired by the private equity group Stack Sports. And it just goes to show that through acquisitions, it might mean turnover in leadership and just a change in the original platforms. ChronoTrack and RunSignup announced a significant partnership in July of 2019. It involves technology collaboration and integration, as well as ChronoTrack starting to migrate their customers from their registration platform to RunSignup. We also heard about the Tough Mudder potential bankruptcy towards the end of 2019. We think this is really sad because it has negative downstream impacts on the vendors that were supplying Tough Mudder events. But it also just goes to show that it can be really challenging and difficult to achieve economies of scale in event production. So the third thing that we're going to talk about briefly are IPOs in the industry. So the first one to talk about is Eventbrite. So when Eventbrite went public, they had an initial valuation of $3.2 billion, which is 17 times their net revenue at the time. After an impressive stock market debut with this high valuation, their initial earnings disappointed investors and shareholders. Additionally, Eventbrite experienced some significant technical issues and customer churn around the acquisition of Ticketfly. Currently, at the end of 2019 and now, Eventbrite's growth is currently rebounding. And because they have a pretty solid platform, they have international business and multiple growth channels, especially in the music industry and festivals that have a lot of value to them, they're going to have a pretty stable future. The interesting thing is that their current valuation is significantly lower than their initial valuation. And we think that this valuation is a lot more realistic. It's kind of settled down, but it still is at 4.5 times their net revenue and 8 times their gross profit. So based on those characteristics that they have with the solid platform, the international business, and multiple high growth channels, we think that this valuation is pretty fair for them. The point that we think is interesting and that applies to our industry is that those valuation multiples aren't necessarily transferable. Endurance is a small, flat, slightly declining market, and you can't directly compare it to the multiples that are coming out of ticketing. That happened in 2019 was with Wanda Sports Group. The Wanda Sports Group are the owners of Ironman, Rock and Roll, Cap Epic, and other endurance events, and they filed to go public in 2019. Their IPO and their SEC filing showed that it is possible to achieve economies of scale in the endurance industry. However, the interesting thing is that their revenue is coming from a diverse set of sources. First of all, they do have really high registration fees. Additionally, they have a lot of money coming in from other streams of revenue, such as sponsorships and media rights. The other interesting takeaway from their SEC filing is that they have a 7.3% growth projection in the North American market through 2022. Our numbers in the RaceTrends report reflect different growth projections that are much more modest. So it's an interesting figure in their report. The release of Race Day Scoring 2.0 was the first production-ready new platform released in years in our industry. The two main platforms that have been used by timers over the last 30 years are the Race Director and RunScore, and combined they represent about 60% market share. They've served timers really well, but there is a new generation of technology available, and Race Day Scoring is that open alternative. In 2019, more than 300 timers were trained on Race Day Scoring, and we do expect that Race Director customers are going to migrate over the next 3 years to Race Day Scoring. So a lot of timers are liking the power that they can get with Race Day Scoring, and they especially appreciate its ease of use and the ease of training new timers. So over the next several years, we do expect to see Race Day Scoring growing to become the most used scoring tool for timers. There are also a number of trends that happened in fundraising, and 2019 was an exciting year for RunSignup in the fundraising industry because we made several significant moves. So the first was the launch of GiveSignup in July of 2019. So GiveSignup is a new division of RunSignup that expands our technology suite for nonprofits with a new ticketing platform that's designed for nonprofits, donation websites, fundraising campaigns, and a next generation nonprofit dashboard. GiveSignup is an all-in-one and open platform that powers nonprofit revenue generation and supporter engagement. The next thing that we announced was our free Facebook fundraiser integration. So the integration allows RunSignup fundraisers to create a connected Facebook fundraiser so that they're able to raise more money, save time, and save money. It's becoming really powerful, and we're going to share some of our early statistics from our first 6 months of the RunSignup Facebook fundraiser integration later in this presentation. We also made some strategic developments to our all-in-one fundraising platform, registration and fundraising platform, and that came at a really interesting time with the shutdown of CrowdRise and the redirect of CrowdRise to GoFundMe charity. This was not communicated very well to nonprofits, and a lot of customers were confused to see their nonprofit platform of CrowdRise redirected to a site that's built for individual crowdfunding and not for nonprofits.
All right, before we move on, just one question that came through that was particularly relevant to that section, which is just asking what is going on with Cool Running.
So Cool Running shut down their results platform this past week as a result of data security issues. We saw people and race directors had pretty upset about the sudden shutdown, but the priority, of course, is complying with things like GDPR and COPA compliance. And ultimately, if there aren't financial incentives for a company to keep that platform running, it's, it is just what happens. And so I'd recommend, if you have results on that platform, to just follow the instructions that are on the Cool Running website, to email and try to get your results off of there.
Thanks. So we're going to move on to some of the industry growth and trends. If we have more questions that come in, we may pop in and answer them, or we'll come back to them at the end. Yeah. So this is the headline that everyone wants to know about, is what's going on with the industry in general. We found a 1% increase in participant growth this year as compared to last year, where we saw a 0.1% decrease. This is one of those analyses that Allison talked about, where what we're looking at is specifically races that were on our platform in both 2018 and 2019. So it's specifically looking at the growth amongst within that set of races, which means it's not taking into account the 23% growth on the entire platform. It's only looking at how much those races grew. I think it's obviously more encouraging to see growth than not. Every year we've done this report, we've hung out kind of in this 1% one way or the other range, and I think that does kind of emphasize everyone's sense that it is a pretty flat market. Repeat participants, this is looking at how many runners who ran a race in one set year return to run the same race in the following year. I think this is really interesting because it's been actually very steady for every year that we've looked at it. It's hung out in right around the same range, and it's also pretty steady across distances. You see the percentage fall a little bit when you get down into marathon and ultras, where you see about a 13–14% of participants return, but for most distances, it's right around that 18% mark. And I think that might be slightly underreporting, because you can have a participant who's changed their name and their email address, and you can't match them to the year that they participated before. That's going to be a pretty small percentage. And I think most race directors, if you ask them, would say that the number of race runners who come back, they would expect to be higher than this. I think it really highlights that you can't ever stop promoting your race. You can't ever stop reaching out, because no matter how much you have some really loyal racers, you're always going to need to bring in new people if you want to stay steady. Pricing, this is pretty straightforward to understand. It's just essentially the averages in pricing across distances. We saw an increase in price for all distances other than half marathons and marathons, with a decrease in pricing for the longer distances, particularly the half marathon, marathon distances. And I think that's relatively easy to explain. For shorter distances, we're seeing both a rise in costs from cities and parks and permitting type organizations, as well as I think a lot of race directors are looking for ways to differentiate themselves through things like premium swag or really cool race party, and those things cost money, and that cost is getting passed on to the runners. With longer distances, those were where we were seeing declines in numbers if you go back to the participation chart. And so price tends to fall when people are looking for a way to attract more runners. Demographic trends, every year that we have done this, there has been a majority of participants are women. We are seeing that even out a little bit. It was 61.2% for women when we first did this back in 2015. We're down to 56.1%. So I think you just kind of want to keep in mind that every event that you're doing can appeal to everyone. Make sure that you have things like gender-specific sizing, that you include all genders in all sorts of promotional materials, that you make it clear that everyone is really welcome at your event. Race churn. So this is actually a really interesting report, but it's also one that is very manual for us to do. So this is looking only at races that had more than 500 participants in 2018. And we track them to see whether or not they happened again, and whether they happened on our platform and other platform. So this isn't necessarily just races left our platform. It is, we have tried to find them and they did not happen at all. So 91.6% of the races over 500 that were on our platform in 2018 reopened on our platform in 2019. 2.8% of them moved to another platform, but they did still happen. Those races still exist. It leaves 5.6% of races that died in 2019 and just did not take place at all. And I think that explains a lot of the sense that the market is really tight, because even if races are able to find some growth, that's a significant number of races that are not able to find enough growth to, maintain existence essentially. And we think, we can't track this for smaller races because it's just too much overhead to do this type of reporting. But it is likely that that number is actually higher when you get down to smaller races. So I think that really explains a lot of the challenge in the marketplace. Looking at a couple of the promotional trends and how tools are doing at bringing runners in right now. Start with coupons. Coupon usage is exploding. We've gone up every year, starting at about 3.7% of registrations taking place with coupons. This year, we saw 8% of registrations used coupons. And at the same time, you're seeing the ROI on those coupons falling, which I think might indicate that people are getting a little bit too loose with when they're offering coupons. Their runners are waiting for coupons before registering, and they're setting a little bit of an expectation of discounting. I would really recommend that when you are setting out your coupon plan, you want to do a thorough plan in advance. Make sure you know when you're going to offer a coupon, that there is a point and a reason to it, and most importantly, that you have a time limit on it, that this is something that you are using to get people to register when you want them to register, and not that it's something that you're getting them to wait for so that they can register cheaper. I also would say that small dollar amounts can be a big driver. You don't necessarily have to offer a $20 coupon for it to make a difference. People just want a little bit of something to prompt them to go through with it. So I would play around with not giving away a lot of money. Throw out a $5 coupon and see how that goes. Referral rewards. If you have ever done any sort of webinar on promotion with us or talked to anyone about marketing at RunSignup, you have heard of referral rewards because we're huge fans here. The way that referral rewards works is when you enable it, every runner that registers gets their own unique registration code that they can share with their friends and family to encourage them to register. And when someone does register using their unique link, the original referrer is credited with that. And that can do, the system can track how many people they refer to your race and reward them in some way. This is specifically looking at refund rewards, which means you set a threshold, and if a person refers that set number of registrations, then they are eligible for whatever amounts of refund you provide them. One that we see commonly is to say you have to refer 5 runners and you'll get back $25 or something along those lines. It's hugely successful. We see about 7% of registration dollars are from referrals when you turn this on. If you add in a swag rewards program where higher level referrers who maybe refer 20 or 30 runners can also get a free swag item, that number goes way up. We can see that pretty much doubled when you're doing both programs and really aggressively promoting it. And the reason that's so valuable is you'll set a threshold that most runners won't ever reach. So most people who may reach out and ask their friends and family to register, and maybe they'll get 1 or 2 people that are referred successfully. but very few people will actually reach the threshold of getting a refund. So you're getting all those registrations in one. And what that ends up being is about 13 registrations come through for every refund that you actually have to give. Race Insights is our internal analytics engine. So it's kind of like a race-specific Google Analytics. It's tracking all of the page views, transactions, donations, etc., that are coming through on your RunSignup page. And what this is pulling an aggregate of everyone's Race Insights data. It's going to underreport Facebook and Google because of things like races that are driving traffic to a website, to their main website that is not on RunSignup. So those links then are coming through as coming from their race website, and it's not showing that that original link was from Facebook or Google. Even with that, you still see nearly 19% of registrations are directed from a search engine. And our Google Analytics reports that it's about 30% from organic search. Those are really high numbers. I think that really drives home the importance of having good search engine optimization, making sure that when you go to Google and you type in your race name or information about your race website comes up. If you have a RunSignup race website, we've done a fair amount of work to make sure that those are showing up very high in your organic search rankings. If you don't have a RunSignup website, you may want to take a look at how you fall in Google and think about if you need to go to an outside consultant to try to improve that ranking.
Or just use RunSignup race websites.
Or just use RunSignup. Trends in registration and when we see people coming in. When do people register? This is one that has not changed a whole lot since we've been doing this, but it is one of my favorite visual graphs because I think it really does just put in front of you exactly what to expect in terms of when runners tend to register for different distances. It's pretty much what you would expect. Longer distances are going to start registering a lot earlier, but this really is very early. 34% of marathoners register more than 120 days before race day. So if you have a long distance, you need to really be getting your marketing and your promotion out very, very early. Get people time to prepare, to train, to plan travel, and all of that. All distances have a little spike at the end. It's obviously very important for 5K participants, where more than a quarter of them are going to register on race week and drive everyone crazy. But every distance spikes up during race week. You really want to make sure that your registration is open as long as possible, and then you're always allowing people to join. Pricing strategy. This is in the registration section because it's about how you set up your registration options, but it's also kind of a marketing stat. 27% of registrations take place within the 3-day period before a price increase or registration closing. And what that means is that there really is a need to create urgency for runners. They respond to deadlines. Everything that you do, every type of promotion that you offer, you want to keep that in mind, that there needs to be a prompt and a reason for them to do something now. Mobile adoption, we are a little bit of a broken record on this one too. We've been hollering about it since I got here when this number was much lower. You've got to make sure that everything you do works on a mobile phone. The traffic continues to increase. We're at about 70% of all race website traffic is from a mobile phone or a tablet. Along with that, more and more people are becoming accustomed to buying things and following through with transactions on their phones. That number is also going up. We're approaching 50% of all transactions happening on mobile phones. So you just want to make sure that everything that you do, you are testing on a mobile device, and that includes your race website, your registration process, an email you send. Everything you do needs to be tested on mobile.
You know where people can get good race websites, registration flows, and emails that are all mobile optimized automatically?
I think that is also RunSignup. That is one way to do it. Although even then, I recommend you test it so you can verify for yourself. But yes, we do everything mobile optimized.
Okay, fundraising. I'm going to present these trends. We're calling them Give Trends now that we launched GiveSignup. So our first stat is just on donations that happen on our platform. The majority of donors make relatively small donations, with more than 70% of donors contributing $25 or less. However, if you look at the second graph for value of donations, you're going to see that over 20% of all donation money that was collected on our platform came from the 1% of donors who contributed more than $250. And the takeaway from this is that if your race is accepting donations, you're going to want to set up a variety of donation levels. Don't just leave a blank box because people are intimidated by that. They don't know how much to donate. And when you do set up your levels, you're going to want to set up a range of amounts so that you can appeal to those people that want to donate $10 or $20, but also make the big ask and try to ask for $500. If you are asking for larger amounts, you're also going to want to set up a donation notification summary so that you can get notifications when somebody makes a large donation, and that way you can reach out and personally thank them right away. It's just a nice touch to keep you engaged with your larger donors. Our next stat is on fundraising. So we have a ton of races on our platform that use donations. We actually found that more than 13,600 races used donations on RunSignup in 2019. There's less races that are using fundraising, but when fundraising is enabled along with donations, it has a big impact on how much a race can raise. So you'll see here that when donations and fundraising are enabled together, on average, a race is going to raise $5,900 as compared to $670 with donations only. Turning on fundraising isn't just enabling that toggle isn't a solution to raise more automatically. The first thing that you have to think about is your race's priority. And if it is structured around promoting a cause, fundraising is the way to go. It's not only a great way to raise money, but it's a great way to get supporters actively involved with your nonprofit. And it's a nice way to start building long-term relationships with your fundraisers. Additionally, as I said, simply turning on fundraising isn't enough, although we have made that very simple for you to do with our new donation and fundraising UX updates. You're going to want to add incentives, either monetary, like a registration refund when they reach a certain fundraising threshold, or visual, like different milestones with badges, and consistent emails throughout the fundraising journey to make sure that your fundraisers are engaged, setting goals and meeting their goals and being rewarded once they do. Our next stats are about Facebook fundraising, which is really, really powerful way for nonprofits to raise more and save time and save money. So we announced the free Facebook fundraiser integration in July of 2019. And to get this data, I pulled a list of, I pulled data from 20 different races that had enabled the Facebook fundraiser integration at some point during registration, and used it until January. So on average, we're finding that connected fundraisers raise $490 more than unconnected fundraisers on RunSignup. They receive 9.74 more donations, and 56% of connected fundraisers met their personal fundraising goal as compared to just 25% of unconnected fundraisers. So we're seeing that Facebook fundraising is having a really, really big impact on races. And the most important takeaway from this is Facebook fundraising is the most powerful tool that you can give to your fundraisers to empower them to raise more. Making your fundraisers successful is going to go a really long way for your nonprofit because they're going to want to keep coming back year after year. And it's just going to really help you build a positive relationship with them. We recommend that you enable the Facebook fundraiser integration if you're a nonprofit and doing a fundraising event on RunSignup, because it's a great way to raise more and empower your fundraisers.
Great. Last section that we're going to get into is the race day trends. So this is obviously anything that is happening on your race day. Starting out, we're going to look at race day registrations. I think this is one that Sorry. Too much computer screen. This is one that I almost didn't include because I think it could be misleading or reduce the importance of it. 2.14% of registrations happened on race day in 2019. And I think that seems like not a significant number. When you think about all of the racers that you have, if you have a 1,000-person race with a $50 charge, it's more than $1,000 that you're leaving on the line by not having race day registration open. And I also think it's important to note that that number should be much higher based on races that we know and the percentages that they see of runners coming in on race day. I think what that really says is there are an awful lot of races not taking registrations on race day, which is, again, just leaving people who might participate in your event out in the cold. And, people are willing to show up and decide last minute. I think a lot of people are intimidated by the process of having race day registration. I encourage you to check out some of the tools with dynamic bib assignment and talk to your timer about how you can make that process work and be easier so that you can feel comfortable allowing runners to sign up at the last minute. Check-in app usage. Our new check-in app is super easy to use. We've seen it growing significantly. We're about 17% of all runners in 2019 were checked in using the check-in app. I think it's really easy to train volunteers on, and it's going to streamline your process a lot. And I think when you look at that average number of runners checked in by the app in a given race, you're at 435 runners. So we do have a lot of our really large races really want a check-in app, and they use it significantly. But the fact that that is our average means that there are a lot of races out there that are small, 80, 100-person races that are still looking for a really quick process, and it really is good for any different distance. RaceJoy GPS tracking. RaceJoy is the runner tracking app that we offer. Our strategy for RaceJoy changed in 2019, and I think that's reflected in the numbers that you see here. It used to be something that was only available directly through RunSignup, and now it is available through certified race day timers. Because of that, it is available to a lot more races. So we saw 108% growth in the number of races offering RaceJoy in 2019. And what that means is that races of all sizes have more access to technology. We really think that over the next few years, we will see that continue to go up, and it really will become more of an expected perk on race day as people become used to having access to things like that. At the same time, it's certainly capable of handling really large races. Philly Marathon had over 7,000 tracked runners and more than 18,000 spectators. So you really do see the full gamut in size of races that are using things like this. The last set of information here for race day is from our timer survey data, which there was a blog post that went up about that a couple of days ago in a little bit more detail, but essentially was a survey that we sent out both through our email list and shared in a couple of different sources on Facebook to try to get some more insight internally into how timing businesses are working and what their needs are. But it came back and we thought it was pretty interesting, so we did include some of the data that we thought you guys might be interested in as well. One of those is looking at type of businesses that timers businesses are. It kind of confirmed our general impression that they are largely smaller companies with highly involved owners. About 5.5 is the median number of employees. And we saw a lot that noted that they were working other jobs as well as significant numbers were highly involved, had an ownership stake in the business. So they tend to be pretty small family-owned type businesses. In terms of growth, this is a fairly encouraging stat. 81.5% of timers reported growth as compared to 89.6% of timers that indicated that they wanted to grow their business. It's obviously not everyone. That means there are people out there looking to grow their timing business who haven't been able to, or perhaps some that are growing but not as much as they'd like to. But I do think that suggests that timing businesses who are proactive and are out there reaching out are able to grow their businesses. Relationship with races, we tend to refer to them as timers, but very few of our timing partners are only timers. 85.9% of timers offer services outside of timing. And that's, they said that over 80% of them said that they felt like their races viewed them as the technology expert in the industry. And I think that means two things. One is that if you are a timer, you have some room to grow your business and to make more money by expanding your book of services. If you are a race, you should be asking your timer what else they can do for you, because they may have skills and services that you didn't realize they were able to help you with. That is it. If you guys want to read the report in full, you can always find that at runsignup.com/trends. Shoot us an email. My email address is Johanna, it's JOHANNA @runsignup.com. If you have any questions about the reports on there, there's a lot more that we didn't go over today. So if any of it is confusing to you, or you just want some more information about how we did it, just let us know. We will take a look and see if there are any questions. Here's a fundraising one. If we are a for-profit organization hosting an event without a nonprofit partner, is it still possible to enable donations and fundraising if the funds will be later donated to multiple nonprofits?
Yes, you can enable donations and fundraising for any race. If you want your nonprofit partners to receive direct payment of donations, you can actually add them as charity partners to your race. They'll be able to set up their own payment accounts and receive donations directly, which a lot of for-profit races that partner with charities like, because it does take away that headache of having to divide up and write checks to different nonprofits after the event has happened. However, if that's your preferred method, you are able to, enable donations, fundraising, and collect on behalf of multiple nonprofits. I will note that the limitation is you aren't going to be able to use Facebook fundraising across multiple nonprofits if they are not set up as charity partners.
Promotional one, if offering promo codes and coupons, what would you say is the max to offer over the course of registration? I mean, it's really going to vary on your race, but I would say to publicly offer, you don't want to have more than 3. You might have a handful of things that are specific to a coupon just for this running club, or a coupon just for a certain group of people. But publicly, I would pick a very small number of things that are like, this is our throwback day and our holiday promotion, and that's good.
As an example, for the Scott Coffee Run, our hometown race, they do 1 coupon per year, and it's always consistently on April Fool's Day. It's just a $5 coupon, and we get a ton of signups that day, but it is very limited, and we don't do many coupons besides that 1.
All right, I think that's all we see right now, but we will be following up by email as well. And thank you guys.
Thanks for attending.